Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. A brief introduction. For most people, the word yoga brings to mind the image of a model that appears on the cover of a yoga magazine in a pose that is almost impossible to get into for an average practitioner. Yoga is commonly practiced as a routine which helps in improving physical fitness and sometimes as a means to stress management. There is growing awareness that it can be effectively used as therapy in treating the variety of ailments, including hypertension, diabetes, heart conditions, etc. Those who have been practicing yoga for a while can attest to the physical and physiological benefits that the practice brings. While all the above-mentioned benefits are certainly desirable, most people are ignorant about the true meaning and purpose of yoga, which is the ability to control the fluctuations of the mind. This brief and succinct definition was provided to us by Sage Patanjali, more than 3,000 years ago, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. In the sutras, Patanjali has provided a very scientific and practical exposition of the philosophy and practice of yoga. One very important section of the book describes what is commonly called ashtanga yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga, which provides practical guidelines for achieving the goal of controlling the mind. Today, most people practice what is called hatha yoga, which includes physical postures, asanas, and some breathing techniques, pranayama. As you can notice from the 8 limbs which are listed below, asana and pranayama are only 2 of these 8 limbs and help establish a strong foundation toward achieving the objectives of yoga. However, to develop a fully integrated practice and achieve the final objectives of control over the mind, one needs to include in their routine all the 8 limbs in some form. Overview of Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali (YSP) are one of the 6 philosophical streams of Hindu schools of philosophy and a very important milestone in the history of yoga. The book is a set of 195 aphorisms, sutras, which are short, terse phrases designed to be easy to memorize. Though brief, it is an enormously influential work that is just as relevant for yoga philosophy and practice today as it was when it was written. The sutras are divided into 4 chapters pada as follows. Samadhipada. The first chapter provides a definition and the purpose of yoga. Various approaches that can be used to achieve its objectives are provided. Sadhanapada. The second chapter contains the practical approach to achieving the goals of yoga. In this chapter the author gives a description of the 8 limbs called ashtanga yoga, which is how the Yoga Sutras are sometimes referred to. Vidyupada. The third chapter focuses on some of the supernatural powers that an adept yogi may be able to attain. Kaivalyapada. In the 4th chapter the nature of the mind and mental perceptions, desire, bondage and liberation and what follows it are discussed. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are also sometimes referred to as Raja Yoga or the Royal Yoga. Definition of yoga. In Sutra 2 of the 1st chapter, Patanjali has defined yoga as yoga is the restraint of the modifications of the mind. Stuff translation by Swami Vivekananda. In subsequent sutras, Patanjali explains that once the mind is properly restrained, then the soul, the true self, can rest in its own true nature. Further, as long as the mind is not under control, it continues to assume the form of the vrittis or the perturbations in the mind, and these become the cause of human suffering. In simpler terms, what this definition tells us is that we can be peaceful and happy when we can control the mind, else, the mind continues to control us and we stay in a state of suffering. Ashtanga Yoga. 8 limbs of yoga. The 8 limbs of yoga as defined in the 2nd chapter are as follows. Yamas, self-restraints. The yamas are guidelines for how to interact with the outside world at a social level. The 5 yamas are ahimsa, non-violence; saga, truthfulness; asteya, non-stealing; brahmacharya, abstinence; aparigraha, non-hoarding. Niyamas, observances. The niyamas represent guidelines for self-discipline. The 5 niyamas are shaucha, cleanliness; santosha, contentment; tapas, austerity; swadhyaya, study of the scriptures and self-study; and ishvara pranidhana, surrender to God. Together, yamas and niyamas provide an ethical and moral code to be followed so the aspiring yogi can establish an adequate moral foundation for his/her spiritual journey. Asana posture. Asana refers to the seated posture which should be steady and comfortable so the yogi can sit and meditate for long periods of time. Pranayama, breath control. Pranayama, which literally means stretching or expansion of prana, the vital life force, involves breath control and helps train and prepare the mind for dharana, concentration. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal. Through pratyahara one gains the ability to withdraw the senses from their objects, thus achieving perfect control over the senses. Dharana, concentration/focus. Dharana involves focusing the mind on a single object of concentration for long periods of time. Dhyana, meditation. When there is an uninterrupted flow of the mind toward the object of focus, the yogi enters the state of meditation. Samadhi, total absorption. Finally, when even the self-awareness of the mind disappears and only the object of meditation shines through, it is called the state of samadhi. It is only in the highest stage of samadhi, called the nirbija samadhi, seedless samadhi, when the mind is fully under control and brings the yogi to a state of perpetual peace and tranquility. Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. A brief introduction. For most people, the word yoga brings to mind the image of a model that appears on the cover of a yoga magazine in a pose that is almost impossible to get into for an average practitioner. Yoga is commonly practiced as a routine which helps in improving physical fitness and sometimes as a means to stress management. There is growing awareness that it can be effectively used as therapy in treating the variety of ailments, including hypertension, diabetes, heart conditions, etc. Those who have been practicing yoga for a while can attest to the physical and physiological benefits that the practice brings. While